Is upcycling on Etsy trademark or copyright infringement?
We've all seen it, those super creative, sustainable clothing brands that upcycle old garments, turning them into something totally new and fabulous. Maybe you've even bought something from Etsy that's been upcycled from a cool branded piece. But here's the big question. If you're an artisan or clothing brand owner using upcycled goods, can you still trademark your brand? What happens when you're using items that already have an established trademark? Are you risking a legal battle, or can you claim a trademark for your own? Let's break this down, and I promise there will be some good stories along the way. But first, let's touch on upcycling. What is it and how does it fit in with branding? So here's what upcycling is. Upcycling is the process of taking used, worn out, or discarded items, usually clothing or purses, and transforming them into something new, creative, and of greater value. Think of a t-shirt with the famous logo on it being turned into a one-of-a-kind jacket, or an old pair of jeans transformed into a trendy handbag. Sounds great, right? The link between upcycling and branding does not have to be complicated. So let me explain. When upcycling existing trademark products, the artisan is creating something entirely new that may have its own branding. The question is whether that branding can be protected with a trademark. Can your new brand stand tall even if the materials have a past life, potentially linked to someone else's trademark? Let's now touch on trademark law and what can be trademarked. A trademark is a symbol, word, or design used to identify the source of goods or services. The purpose is to protect the business or the artisan's brand, ensuring that no one else can profit off of your unique identity. So trademarking involves exclusive rights to use a brand identifier like a logo or a slogan, preventing others from using the same or confusingly similar marks. So what can be trademarked? The typical things that can be trademarked include company names, logos, slogans, taglines, even product names. Some distinct packaging designs can also be trademarked. What you can't trademark is something generic or commonly used in your industry. For example, you cannot trademark the term eco-friendly for your sustainable brand unless it's part of a unique logo or slogan. Sorry, but the term upcycled is a bit too broad. Does upcycling get special protection? Unfortunately, no special protection comes with upcycling, but here's where it gets tricky. The items being upcycled could already be trademarked products. So this begs the question, does using trademark products for upcycling pose a trademark infringement issue? The law is clear. Just because you're upcycling something does not mean you automatically have the right to use another brand's logo, design, or trademarked elements. So let me give you an example. Let's say you find an old vintage Levi's jacket and you decide to jazz it up with embroidery, maybe adding some fun patches. You can definitely upcycle it, but you cannot just slap your own logo on that jacket and call it a new Levi's product. Using the Levi's brand in any way could land you in trademark infringement territory. So here's another scenario posing a trademark infringement risk. Let's say you're upcycling an item from a famous brand. Think Nike shoes or a Gucci handbag. If you're using those items and leaving their logos visible or using them as part of your brand identity, you could face legal issues. Even if the item has been altered, as long as the original trademark or logo is recognizable, the original brand owner could argue that you're causing confusion or tarnishing their trademark. So is there any scenario or instance where upcycling is safe? When it's safe to upcycle without worrying about an infringement? Here we go. Removing the trademarked elements. If you're upcycling a product with a trademark and remove any logos, brand names, or designs that are protected, you're generally in the clear. For example, if you upcycle a Nike t-shirt into a unique crop top, but you've carefully removed any visible logos, you've basically created a new product that does not infringe on Nike's trademark. So this begs the question, do you have to make it truly unique? When you alter the product enough that it becomes a completely new item, like turning a Gucci handbag into a funky wall hanging, minus the branding, you're adding your own unique value to the upcycled item. So contrast that with when it's not safe to upcycle, leaving trademarks visible. So if you upcycle an item and the original brand or trademark remains visible, you're treading on thin ice. For example, using a Louis Vuitton purse and keeping the iconic LV monogram could lead to legal action reaction from Louis Vuitton. Why? You're creating confusion. If your upcycled item is too similar to the original branded product, even if it's altered, you could confuse consumers into thinking your item is somehow related to the original brand. This could be an issue, especially if your upcycled piece starts gaining popularity. So, do I have another example up my sleeve? I sure do. A good example is from 2019 when a designer in the UK tried to upcycle old Nike sneakers and resell them as custom artwork. Nike was not pleased with this and sent them a cease and desist. While the designer was clearly attempting to turn those old shoes into something unique, Nike did not like how their logo was still visible and they were not having any part of it. So, in these instances, can you trademark your upcycled brand? Yes, absolutely. As long as your brand name isn't too similar to an existing trademark, you can trademark your own brand name. You can also trademark your logo or your slogan. Just because your materials might come from a well-known brand does not mean that your brand's identity cannot stand on its own. So for example, you might use an upcycled piece from Adidas, but you could still trademark your unique logo, which could be completely different from the Adidas branding. So what makes a strong trademark? Your trademark should be distinctive and not generic. Eco-friendly upcycled apparel might be a great tagline, but it's not something you could trademark because it's too generic. You'll need something unique, like upcycled couture, to stand out in the marketplace. A trademark must also be used in commerce, so don't forget to actually sell those products once you've trademarked the name. Otherwise, it could be considered abandoned. But for more on trademark details, make sure to catch that video right there. So what defenses might apply if you've upcycled an item and possibly have committed trademark infringement? The fair use defense could be applicable in some scenarios, especially if you're using upcycled products in a way that's clearly parroting or commenting on the original brand. But be careful, fair use is a tricky legal defense. So let's say you've upcycled a Gucci bag and you use it as part of an art project, calling it the destruction of luxury. In this case, you might be able to argue that it's a parody and therefore protected under the fair use doctrine. However, this would depend on the context and how it's presented. So here are some examples of successful and not so successful upcycled brands. Number one, reworked by the studio. One brand that's made waves by upcycling and still maintaining a unique identity is Reworked by the studio. The brand specializes in taking old band t-shirts and creating stylish, one-of-a-kind garments, and they've successfully avoided legal trouble by ensuring that they don't leave the original logos intact. Example number two, Etsy sellers and trademarking issues. Many Etsy sellers also face challenges when upcycling trademark products. For example, a particular Etsy seller, the Patchwork Queen, upcycled vintage denim jackets into custom designs. But when she kept original logos visible, she had to change her approach. She started removing those logos and focusing more on her own artistic designs. Problem solved. So if you have any questions about upcycling on Etsy or through your own website, make sure to drop your comments or your questions down below. You can also send me an email. It is always free to do so. So can you trademark your upcycled brand? Yes, of course. But can you use existing trademarked products without risking a legal disaster? Well, as we've seen, it's a bit trickier. It all comes down to how much you're altering the product, whether or not you're infringing on someone else's intellectual property, and how creative you're willing to get with your own brand identity. The key takeaway is this. So listen up. You can upcycle with style and creativity, but be careful about leaving brand logos exposed or too similar to existing trademarks. Be clever, be bold, be creative, but also be sure you're not stepping on anyone else's legal toes in the process. If you're starting your own upcycled fashion brand on Etsy or on your own website, make sure your branding is unique and consider consulting with me if you have any questions. I hope this video helped clear up any confusion around trademarking and upcycling clothes or accessories or merchandise, because fashion is fun. Again, if you have any comments or questions, leave them in the comment section below. And if you want to connect with me, make sure to check out the description below. And don't forget to check out that video because it's a great continuation to understanding copyrights in the context of Etsy design.